Hey everybody, here's Bo, and I'm Dave, and we are inside today because it has been raining all day. That's right, it is August 20th, and we have had about at least 12 hours of straight rain. We are under hurricane warning. Now Tropical Storm Hillary is coming through, and I'm going to walk you through the yard very quickly today. But I also want to, since we're staying inside, talk about a couple gardening books that I thought would be of interest to you. So first things first is this is a crepe myrtle tree off to the right here, and it is actually coming into bloom. So kind of cool. I don't know if you can pick up that color or not. Let me see if this one is a little bit closer to us. And so it's kind of cool. Something that just came into bloom the last couple of days. Let's see. This is going to show you how much rain we've had. And we've been really fortunate that it has not been as bad as they projected, which is crazy to think about because we've probably had 3-4 inches of rain. But we have escaped any thunder showers, and we've escaped really any massive flooding, so that's all good. And all the plants are getting a really good soaking, and especially at the end of August, and with all our water restrictions and everything, this is really helping us out. Getting a few puddles here and there, but nothing too bad. And the winds have stayed relatively calm, so knock on wood. We did have an earthquake earlier today as well. About a 5.1 is what they're saying, and that's not too bad. I didn't do a whole lot this week out here besides the normal maintenance of mowing the yard and stuff, but it's also definitely getting toward that fall time. We're starting to see some more blooms on the roses. We're starting to also really start to see things slowing down in terms of their growth cycle. August 20th, we're about 2 months from the summer solstice, so we've got about 2 hours less of light, and that, is why is causing that. So walking around the yard real quick, everything looks to be good. Let's go in and take a look at some of my favorite books that are great for horticulture. Hey everyone, I'm Dave Pluff. I want to welcome you into my office. And what I'd like to do in this episode is to talk about some of the really cool gardening books that are out there and available, books that you may or may not need for your own personal resources. Today, of course, everything can be found on the internet, or at least most things. But there are some specialty topics. And if you're a book collector like I am, as you can see from behind me, and you don't even want to look across the room, there have been libraries that have had less books than I do. I want to go over and kind of share with you part of my collection in terms of horticulture or gardening books. Now, the number one gardening book, I think, hands down, is the Sunset Western Garden Book. And if you're in the western U.S., especially California like I am, this has been a staple in nurseries and garden centers from Canada down to Mexico. This is a book that is really what we consider the Bible of horticulture. If you're outside the western U.S., the National Garden Book is a book that Sunset puts out that would be more for your particular climates. This one is hardback. They normally come softback, and they are rather pricey. However, what I'm going to tell you, and I'll probably reiterate this throughout the video, is the Friends of the Library shops that you'll find at libraries usually have many copies of these for a couple of bucks. Pick one up there. It's nothing that you need to get brand new unless you want to get a brand new book. But when you go through it, everything is listed by a plant's botanical name. both genus and species. It goes through the varieties, the different climates that the plant can live in, as well as the color and when it blooms, all sorts of different things. So this is one of the most important and essential books that is out on the market. And if you are into horticulture, it should be on your shelf. It is, again, probably the most famous of all the horticultural books. Now, Sunset also put out a string of smaller books that are not really pamphlet or anything like that, but they're really good focus books. This one's on ground covers, but all your major categories of plants, Sunset will have a book out on it. A lot of it is reiteration from the Sunset Western Garden book. When you go from book to book to book, a lot of it is repeated, especially as you get toward the back of the book, when it has more general gardening advice. But these are very good books. They are not my favorite, though. There are 3 companies that put out this type of a book: Sunset, Ortho, and then HP. So I'm going to show you a sample of those right now, since I'm talking about those. Ortho is probably the one that I'm most familiar with, and especially working in the garden centers in the late 80s and 90s. These were books that were, again, very staple items in garden centers. Once again, they are focused on any particular areas like vegetables, roses. This one's on herbs and spices, and wonderful color photos, very similar to the Sunset books as well. A little bit more descriptive, and I do like Ortho. It's just because it's more nostalgic for me, I think. But they are very good quality books, though my favorite is HP. I don't know if they have HP books anymore. You'll probably have to find these on eBay. But they are the best quality books. You can see that they are a little bit wider, a little bit thicker than the Sunset or the Ortho books. And this one itself, just on African violets. The photos are mostly from like the late 70s, early 80s. They're that type of quality of photo. They are Southern California based because, for instance, in the book on roses, you'll see a visit to a person's yard, and that was one of my customers when I worked for Armstrong Garden Centers in Ontario. And he even pointed out, hey, I'm in this book. Besides roses and African violets, they have bulbs, citrus, and again, I would probably check these out on eBay. I don't really see them in garden centers anymore, whether it's a publishing company issue or what have you, but they are, to me, the highest quality books of that type of size and information. Ortho also did a few specialty larger books, such as Successful Houseplants. Again, very cool photos and lots of great information. Again, no gardener is going to turn these books down. As gardeners, we love to see beautiful images of other people's gardens and of plants, and you can't really go wrong with a book like this. One of my most favorite books, though, that I'm going to share with you in this video is called Home Growing. It is my favorite vegetable garden book. Again, this is a book you would probably find on eBay, maybe a used book on Amazon as well. I doubt it would be in print. Gosh, I've had this book since the 80s, copyright 1977, and it is just wonderful. And it's one of those books that I look through every winter right before spring, and it gets me excited to go out to the yard and do vegetable planting. It covers not only vegetables and herbs, but it also covers fruit trees and how to do espaliers and how to prune and how to graft. And it's really just a wonderful book. It is English in origin, and so when we would deal with pounds, they're dealing with kilograms. So that's the conversion you have to think about. But besides that, that's really the only drawback to the book. But again, it's one of my favorites. Again, Home Growing, Edwin Steffek is the author of this. Among also of my favorite books is this one that I picked up from a used bookstore. And it's called Perennials for American Gardens. And it's going to be probably a little bit too shiny to see there. There we go. And it's a great and fantastic book. I'll put some of the links, or not the links, but the titles and authors in the description below. This is very much a great book for instance, perennial lovers, but it is more for the advanced gardener. And I hate to say that because the pictures are amazing, and knowing what's out there is really important. For instance, this is a kind of a rare plant that you're not really going to find in garden centers. You're probably going to have to order this online. But you're going to have a description, and then you're also going to have, as you can see here, several of the varieties as well. And unfortunately, the bad thing about books is a lot of the varieties just aren't grown anymore. There's better, more advanced varieties, and there's also varieties that someone owns the patent on that doesn't allow it to be propagated anymore. So a lot of that happens. This is a book, again, that I got fairly inexpensively, $20 from a used bookstore that specialized in used books. It wasn't like a Friends of the Library bookstore where they're just taking donations. This is a high-quality book, and it is fantastic. It is rather heavy and lots of pages. 630 pages, but it is one of my favorites, and I've had it probably for 35 years. So again, one of the places to find these books are at used bookstores. There is a variety of specialized books, and if you are really focused on one particular plant, definitely go about and collect those particular types of books. This one here is particularly on cycads. This is what a sago palm would be. And Australia is where they normally originate. So this is a great book. Lots of very specialized information. But again, this is probably something, in fact, I did pick up at a Friends of the Library bookstore, probably for $1 or $1.50. And when I see those specialized books like this, I definitely pick them up because they are rare and they look really good in a horticultural library. One thing that you've probably seen in my garden videos is kind of a dugout area of my yard that used to be a pond area, roughly 9 feet wide at the widest, 21 feet in length. And I had a water garden there for many, many years. Water hyacinths and water lilies, all sorts of really cool plants I grew in there. Unfortunately, the tree behind it also grew a little bit too wild and shaded the pond. Ponds need, for the most part, sun, and it was a deciduous tree, so the leaves would always fall in the water, and it just became more of a mess than anything else. And so it doesn't exist anymore. I would like a smaller water feature in the garden. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that at this time, but I love water gardening and particularly landscaping around ponds. So this one here, and I think it is by Tetra Pond. Tetra Pond, if they're still in business, I'm not quite sure. I only dealt with them in the 80s and 90s. Tetra Pond, who you'll see a lot more at aquarium shops. They're the ones who have the primarily the fish food. But I love doing the landscaping around the ponds and all the rocks and things like that. That's where you get some really cool and unique plants. But Water in the Garden has been my favorite water gardening book, and definitely 2 thumbs up on that. There is one more book I want to share with you in today's video, and that is a rare book. It is a heavy book. That's why it's on the bottom of the pile. I have only seen this copy ever in all the bookstores I've been at. I do not know if it originally had a dust jacket or not. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that I only paid $20 for this book. It is normally a book that would cost you between $200 and $300 if it were new. And I told you it's heavy. This is like an incredible doorstop. This is called Exotica. And Exotica has, of course, exotic plants. There are so many. And unfortunately, the book is on the older side, so you have black and white images, and you have all sorts of different types of geraniums, begonias, things like that, that are more on the exotic side, on the tropical side, where they can freeze, and they just have some really cool pictures and incredible books. Pictorial Cyclopedia of Exotic Plants from Tropical and Near Tropical Regions. 12,000 illustrations, and I'm trying to see, 1957 is when that book came out. So that is one of the gems of my collection, and as I move through some of the books that I have around, I'll pull out others to set aside and talk to you about that are really cool. Anyway, that is all for me. Thank you for walking through the garden this week, even though it is like hurricane weather, very odd. But I will see you next week with a new garden video.